Good morning, writers. We are starting a brand new project today. We are going to make books about books. So what we're going to do is think back to a non-fiction book that we read before spring break. You were doing some reading with Mrs. Ortiz, and you were all reading non-fiction books. And who can remind me what a non-fiction book is? I'll give you a little think time. And yes, a non-fiction book is a book about something that's real and really happens in real life. So it's not a storybook, but it's a book about maybe an animal or a certain culture or buildings, something that's real in the real world. That's a non-fiction book. So think back to those non-fiction books that you explored before spring break 2 weeks ago and pick one that's really interesting to you and that you think you could write a book about. So the books I went through are mostly fiction books because that's the kind of book I have a lot of. But I found one cool nonfiction book called What is a Refugee? What is a refugee? And usually a good tip for figuring out if a book is a nonfiction book is if it's a question like that. Like what is, or how do, or where is, or things like that. That's a good clue that the book you're reading is a nonfiction book. So What is a Refugee is a nonfiction book, and it's one that I chose. And I thought to myself, this book is interesting enough for me to write my own book about it. So I started with a few pieces of paper that I stapled together. I did 3 staples down the side. You could also do 1 staple up here. If you don't have staples in your house right now, you could just put the pages all together. It's up to you. And I started with my title page. So I drew myself a straight line and I wrote on top, remembering my finger spaces, what is a refugee? What is a refugee? And once I had done that, I went down to maybe the sort of bottom-ish part of the page, drew another straight line, and wrote by Miss Lewin. Of course, you're not going to write by Miss Lewin, you're going to write by Madden, or by Nayla, or whatever your name is. And then once I'd written my title, so my title is the title of the book. And since I'm using What is a Refugee, I wrote exactly what is a refugee. Then I wrote my author name down here. And after that, I decided to draw a picture of myself reading my book. I'll hold it up to you. So I drew a picture of myself. I tried to make it realistic with my bangs and my green eyes. And I wrote a book underneath it that says, What is a Refugee? And then I drew a bunch of question marks all around it. I wonder if you can think why I did a bunch of question marks. I did a lot of question marks because that's part of the title, and nonfiction books can answer a lot of the questions that you have about the topic they're about. So once I had done my title page with my author name here and my illustration, I went to my first page. So my first page of my book is going to be why I chose the book that I did to write about. So I started with the sentence frame. I chose this book because. I chose this book because. And because is actually a new snap word we're going to be learning about soon. Because is a great word because it tells your reader your reason for doing something. So I chose this book because, and then I said, why did I choose this out of all the books that I had? Well, I chose it because I don't have too many nonfiction books, but you have a lot to pick from. So why would you choose a certain nonfiction book? I was thinking that I like to learn new big words, and I like to learn about people, and I see all the people on the cover of my book, and I see the title telling me I'm going to learn a new word. So I wrote, I chose this book because I like to learn new words and about people. And then I remembered to put my period at the end of my sentence. I remembered to put my 2 finger spaces between my words, and I drew a picture. The picture I chose to write was refugee in big letters by syllables. Let's clap it together. Ref-U-G. And I wrote that because I was talking about learning brand new words. But you could write anything here. You could draw or write anything in your illustration about the book that you chose and why you chose it. So these are the first 2 pages we're going to work on today. Our title page and our page 1 of our book. And you'll notice that I tried my very best to draw myself straight lines, to use neat handwriting, to make sure that I started my sentences with what? Yep, uppercase letters. And I wrote most of my other letters, especially my magic C letters, with lowercase letters. I remembered my punctuation, and I took my time so I could do thoughtful and neat work that my reader could read easily. Your job now is to pick a nonfiction book that you think is interesting enough to write a book about, and then get to work on your nonfiction book. All right, friends, good luck and have fun with it. Be creative.